Talk to us about the abortion pill, how it works, and specifically how dangerous it is for the women that the abortion industry says they care about. Let's just further discredit ACOG and these pro-abortion groups.
Absolutely. Well, you're right, Seth, in that this is the next frontier for the abortion industry. And we are going to see a massive explosion, not only in the number of preborn lives that are lost because of these dangerous medications, which of course is our primary objection to abortion, but we're also going to see a massive increase in the number of women who are damaged or who die from abortion attempts. And
like
so we know that in countries that actually collect data, unlike the US, in countries that do a good job collecting data, like Finland, there's a great study out of Finland, and as far as the data that they looked at, that showed that chemical abortions have a 4 times higher complication rate than surgical abortions. Okay. And that's under controlled circumstances. That's when it's done under medical supervision within the gestational age range that it was approved for, that sort of thing. When you start taking away those restrictions and those controls, we are only going to see those numbers increase. And that's what's already happening. We know that now in the US, a little over 50% of the documented abortions are done via medications, via chemical abortion. And that number is likely much higher because, as you said, there are so many ways in which women are obtaining these that we're not able to track. And so yes, the big push now is not only that the use of these be expanded, but that the medicalization. So on the one hand, they cry that abortion is essential health care. On the other hand, they want all healthcare providers removed from the process. And so these pill mills have popped up online where women can just get on. I just spoke recently to a woman who is in her 50s who is not capable of being pregnant anymore, who was able to easily obtain them through a pill mill website by lying about her age, lying about the fact that she was even pregnant. And we know that women are oftentimes wrong about how far along they are in their pregnancy, or they'll have motivation to lie. If they're 20 weeks and they find themselves scared, they don't know what to do, and they know, hey, I have to say that I'm 10 weeks pregnant so I can get these medications, then they're just going to lie and say that they're 10 weeks pregnant. Or you have a sex trafficker who doesn't want his trafficking victims to be pregnant because they can't make him money if they're pregnant. And so he is going to get on and he's going to order these pills and have easy access to these pills to push them onto women. So there are just a number of things that are wrong with this. Even when we step back from the morality side, that morally this is wrong because you're ending a human life. But even just looking at the effects that this is going to have on women as well, it's going to be catastrophic. And what it shows is exactly what you said, that the abortion industry and their allies, of which ACOG is a huge ally of the abortion industry, don't actually care about women's health. They only care about abortion at all costs, all access to abortion. And this is proven by the fact that ACOG sued the FDA over the REMS, the restrictions that govern the use of mifeprex during the COVID pandemic. Yeah. So the current REMS, or risk evaluation mitigation strategy, are applied to mifeprex because it's a dangerous medication, and the FDA recognized that when they approved it. And so they put these restrictions in place to try to minimize the adverse effects and maximize the quote unquote benefit of the medication, of which there is none. But, this was their attempt at trying to minimize those adverse effects. They are really not burdensome. In brief, I won't go into detail, but in brief, they just require that you rule out an ectopic pregnancy, that a woman be seen in person and evaluated in person before she get these medications, and that she has some kind of follow-up set up. So that's important for 2 reasons. One, an ectopic pregnancy, which we know occurs in at least 2% of pregnancies in the U.S., and that's on the rise, is a legitimate cause of maternal mortality still in this country. Because if a pregnancy is growing outside of the uterus, where it's supposed to be, usually in the tube, once it gets to a certain size, it causes the tube to rupture and can cause life-threatening bleeding inside the woman's abdomen. And I've taken care of women who were nearly dead from ectopic pregnancy. So this does happen even in this country. The problem with mifeprex in an ectopic pregnancy is, one, mifeprex, the drug that is used in chemical abortions, doesn't work to end the life of a child that is growing outside of the uterus like it does when they're growing inside of the uterus. So one, it doesn't actually end her pregnancy. But two, the symptoms of a chemical abortion are basically the same as the symptoms that a woman experiences when she has an ectopic pregnancy, and that's abdominal pain and vaginal bleeding. So let's set this scenario up. A woman, this is what it's being advertised as. This is needed for women that are in rural America who have no access to health care. This is their only way to access abortion. So let's run with that scenario, right?
Tell us what would really happen.
Exactly. Let's run with that scenario. So here you have scared 18-year-old girl who's in rural America. Closest hospital with surgical services and transfusion services is 2 hours away. And she finds herself pregnant and she's scared. She doesn't know what to do. So she gets on one of these pill mill websites. She tells them that she's 8 weeks pregnant. Maybe she actually is 8 weeks pregnant. And they ask her, what number pregnancy is this for you, if they even do that? And she says, it's my first. Okay, so they determine she has no risk factors for an ectopic pregnancy. She says she's 8 weeks. They give her the pills. They tell her, you are going to experience a lot of abdominal cramping. You're going to have some vaginal bleeding. That's very normal. Don't go to the hospital. They'll know that you had an abortion if you go to the hospital. Just stay home. Those are very normal symptoms. She has an ectopic pregnancy. She gets the pills. She takes them. She starts having abdominal pain and vaginal bleeding. And she thinks, no, they said this was normal. I just need to stay at home. They said this was what was going to happen. And in the meantime, she's bleeding into her abdomen. And by the time she passes out and someone finds her and drives her 2 hours to the closest hospital that has emergency surgical services, she's dead. And this is going to repeat itself over and over and over again across this country. And no one will be held to account. That's the horrible thing.